Grandma. Okay, this is going to be talked about moving forward as we continue to see more and more injuries amongst pitchers. Obviously, Shane Bieber tearing up his elbow. He'll need Tommy John surgery. Last year, he also had a sore elbow. So did Tristan McKenzie. The number of players that have suffered arm injuries, particularly elbow, is through the roof. Do we think that the pitch clock has anything to do with that, the fact that the pitchers are just working on a much faster basis?
I think so. I think when you look at the pitch clock, this is the second year of it being in its existence, and I think you're still in that trial and error. You're still gathering research on the pitch clock, and you're going to make the proper adjustments as you continue to go along. I think with the pitch clock, we've seen pitchers pitch harder. We've seen pitchers pitch better, but we've also seen pitchers get hurt more, right? Because pitchers are used to having, 20, 30 seconds in between pitches to kind of.
In the old days, whatever they needed.
Whatever they needed. That's not the case anymore. So, yeah, with the velocity going up and the pitching being more of quality, you're also seeing more injuries because it seems like they're rushing through their rotation or whatever their routine is, and it's hurting them in the long run.
G, what do you think?
Listen, you know better than anybody else, and I've had a lot of injuries, surgeries, ACLs, and you've had surgery on elbows and shoulders and things. Ligaments, you can't strengthen a ligament. Ligaments, they have a certain amount of torque and a certain amount of pressure they can be upon and before they tear. So you can strengthen the muscles around them, but ligaments don't get stronger. And when you look at people now and you look at some of these pitching videos, and I send some back on our chats all the time, they teach this maximum effort. They teach throwing the baseball as hard as you can. They teach you to raise your velocity, the spin rate, all those different things. And then you mix it in with the fact that you're throwing a ball 100 miles an hour every 15 seconds. That has something to do with it. I think we're kind of reaching the evolution where you're at the high, threshold of what a human body can take.
Yeah.
And I just think, once you get up to around 100 miles an hour consistently, it's tough to figure out how to minimize injuries throwing the ball that fast.
It's an interesting question. I wish I had a definitive answer. I don't know that anybody does. But I will say this. Imagine you're standing in front of a heavy bag and you punch it as hard as you can. And I don't mean just like a 6-inch jab. I mean you pull back and you punch it as hard as you can. And I tell you now, do that 100 times and just rest 15 seconds between each punch. Now, you do get the inning breaks where you're sitting down, but even if it's 15 times, 6 times in a row. Mm-hmm. So you punch it 15 times, 20 times, then you sit down for 10 minutes, then you come up and you do it again. At some point, fatigue is going to become a factor. So I wish that we didn't have the pitch clock because then it becomes the control in the experiment. One of the things that I think is contributing, 2 things. In the last 5 to 10 years, spin rate has become a buzzword in baseball, a buzz term. Everybody's counting rotation, and guys are doing whatever they can to increase their spin rate. Well, how do you spin a baseball? When you apply pressure to one side at the delivery point. To apply pressure on one side, you're turning your arm to do that. What is affected most by the turning of your wrist? Your elbow. Mm-hmm. Also, velocity has become such a commodity in baseball. It used to be that if guys were considered fireballers if they were in the low 90s. If you were in the mid to high 90s, you were Nolan Ryan. You were a freak. Not anymore. If you don't throw low 90s now, good luck. You better have 3 A-plus pitches. Tom Glavine would never have been scouted today.
Wow.
Or Greg Maddux never would have been scouted today because he just didn't throw that way. And he said oftentimes after his career, I could have thrown hard if I wanted to, but pitching isn't about throwing hard. It's about hitting spots and ball shape, what you do with the baseball. So I just think that the game has moved on to velocity is key, and that's why we're seeing more injuries. Guys are trying to throw high 90s, and we're seeing more injuries.
I got a question. I don't know the pitcher's name in Atlanta, but I know their ace in Atlanta. He got hurt. Garrett Cole in New York. You got Shane Bieber here, right? In MLB, these star pitchers are like star quarterbacks in the NFL.
Absolutely.
Eventually, Jay, I think we're going to start seeing tweaks to this pitch clock tweaks to some of these rules because you can't have guys like Shane Bieber and Garrett Cole missing time like this when they're marquee players in the game.
You absolutely cannot, and it's right now it's a sign of the times. We're seeing a lot of injuries, and somebody's going to have to do a deep dive and figure out exactly why these injuries are happening, but they're definitely happening at an increased rate. All right, let's talk about the right field position for the Cleveland Guardians. It wasn't long ago we thought, well, that's Oscar Gonzalez, and it's going to be Oscar Gonzalez for 10 years.
Wow.
And he flamed out last year, and he didn't last for the Guardians. And now it's kind of like Will Brennan, but they're also trying to see if Ramon Laureano can take that position, and also Estevan Florial, who is highly regarded in this organization as a guy who's next. But none of them are having great success. Will Brennan has so far had the most opportunity, and he's put up the best numbers. But what do you think the Guardians need to do at right field right now?
This is the plan. They want somebody to jump up and take it, right? They want somebody, if Will Brennan can come up and give us some power numbers and hit a few home runs and put some stuff together, I think that they will be much more inclined to give him that role. But, you know what they said earlier this season, they want to see what the young guys have. They want to see guys fight it out for these positions. And I think you're going to see this pretty much to the All-Star break. I think they're going to give all these guys an opportunity, as long as they're winning, to keep platooning and doing their thing, switching in and out to see what the best move is. 9-3 right now, but if they get to 3 or 4 weeks into the season, 4 or 5 more weeks in the season, and they start to slide a little bit, I think they'll be more apt to say, okay, let's put a guy in there, give him all the bats and all the opportunity to take the position. But as long as they're winning, I think Stephen Vogt wants to give everybody ample opportunity to see who's really going to grab the position.
I'm going to just shake it up a little bit as a casual baseball fan. I know the Guardians have a lot of high-level infield prospects in their minor league system. If don't nobody step up and take over this right field position and the Guardians continue to win, I expect Chris Antonetti to take some of those infield prospects and trade those off and get you a quality outfielder.
Yeah, that's also an opportunity. They've got some guys down in the minor leagues that they think will be major league ready very soon. They're going to keep a close eye on a couple of those guys to see what they're doing in AAA and in AA. So that always is a possibility, bringing someone up. But it's interesting, the word platoon to Stephen Vogt is a bad word. He doesn't like it. What he loves doing is getting guys at bats, and I think he's done a great job of doing that so far. He's playing 3 different right fielders, but I believe Brennan has played in the most games, 10 or 11.
He has more hits than the other two combined.
And he has more hits, but he also has more at bats considerably. But these guys are getting at bats, and that's good that he's been able to do that. To your point, and it's a good one. When the losses start piling up, and there's a lack of production from that slot in the lineup, it's going to become more of an issue. Right now, they're getting by with it. They're winning. But they're going into a series tonight with the Yankees. That's going to be a much different test than they've had so far. Even with Seattle and Minnesota, they're not the Yankees. So let's see what happens over the next couple of weeks. But I agree with you. I think by the All-Star break, whether it's by trade or calling someone up, they've got to do something with that position, and they've got to get some regular production out of right field. All right, let's